Guys, I was imagining the scenes as I wrote the script for this lesson, imagining my own little interpretation of Apollo, like, haha, imagine having to do this scene with him. And then I remembered that ATAC made Apollo just the Apollo lander. The jokes are gonna be even stupider now, goddamn! So yeah, today we're talking about Dear Sweet Apollo. One of the most popular of the gods, I think. He's just, honestly, everyone knows him. Fun fact, he is one of the few that kept his names going over to Roman times, because he's just that good. He's just that good. The main facts about Apollo. Apollo was the god of music, prophecy, art, and medicine. Apollo was also considered to be the perfect specimen of a man. Like, everyone figured that he was just the hottest being to ever exist. Apollo, he was fine as hell. That's what Apollo was. He was also considered to basically be on the opposite side of Dionysus in the arts, as he stood for more harmony and order in his arts, while Dionysus thrived more in ecstasy and chaos. So kind of two sides of the same coin, but not really. Apollo was also often depicted as a Koros, a man of slim frame with no facial hair. Apollo's a twink, that's just canon. I don't make the rules. Apparently, according to the Greeks, the twinks are literally the hottest people to exist, so I don't make these rules. I just listen to them. So his main images are the lyre, the bow, crows, wolves, and the laurel. Lyre and bow makes sense, laurel kind of makes sense, but the other two I'll explain later. He is best known for helping Paris. No, not that Paris. Kill Achilles with a bow. This was actually because Achilles had brutally murdered one of Apollo's sons, Troilus, on an altar to the god himself. Because of this, Apollo sought out revenge and saw his chance when Paris was trying to kill Achilles and took him down. So let's talk about Apollo's youth. So Apollo, when his mother was pregnant, when his mother Leto was pregnant with he and his sister, Hera had banned her from being able to give birth on land since she was expecting children of Zeus, which Hera hated that. Hera hated when anyone had children of Zeus except for her. Leto fled to the floating island, corpse of Asteria, see Terra Teaches Poseidon if you're confused, the island Delos. It is said that Leto actually asked the island how to allow her to give birth on it, promising that if it did, that Apollo would build a great temple on it. Hearing this, and having no other natural gifts to offer Leto, the island accepted, and Leto was able to have her children. The corpse could talk. It's not just any corpse, it's a talking corpse. Best kind. Also in some tellings, the fetus Apollo and Leto, he asked him to... Words! So the fetus Apollo asked Leto not to have him in Thebes, as he would punish someone there someday, and as she wandered off to find a better place to give birth, he just asked her to have him on this island as she was walking around, and so she walked on the island and had Apollo. Just Apollo, actually. Not even Artemis on this island. Yeah, so literally this is the scene I was writing when I went, this is the Apollo lander. Oh fuck. So yeah, apparently Artemis wasn't even Apollo's twin, or considered that, until a poet from Thebes named Pindar wrote it in one of his poems. Pindar is actually considered one of the canonical 9 lyric poets, because his work is so well preserved despite being from around 500 BC. And apparently Virgil was the one who made it popular that Artemis helped Leto birth Apollo. Of course it was fucking Virgil. But Hera knew that Leto was now trying to give birth to these two on this island, and so she sent the Titan Python to go and kill the children and torment Leto. This is actually who, in the campaign, the Dragonborn clan is descended from. There's only 2 dragons in Greek mythology. I can tell you this. Also, when I was doing research for this, I distinctly remember a story existing, and I could not find this story anywhere. But weren't they born from an egg at some point? Like, am I crazy? Am I the only one that thinks of that? I'm 95% sure at one point Leto was turned into a bird. I couldn't find resource on it anywhere. I suddenly feel like ATAC did when he had his moment like this, where I feel like I hallucinated it, but I don't think I'm crazy. It's something I understand now. Apollo was said to have also been born fully grown, carrying a golden sword. It's also said that at birth, the island suddenly burst into life, filling with lush plants and beautiful flowers, being just a barren wasteland before that. It's also said that at just 4 days old, Apollo went on to hunt and killed Python with a single bow strike to avenge his mother. This actually angered Python's mother, Gaia, who was angry enough to go tell Zeus to banish Apollo to Tartarus. Like, straight to hell. That's how she felt. You killed my son? Straight to hell. Gone. Get out. Go. Shoo. Bye. But Zeus was just like, no, he's just a lad, and instead exiled to serve as a slave for 9 years. After this, Apollo actually went to apologize to Gaia when he returned, and she gifted him the oracular temple of Delphi as a sign of good faith. Apollo thanked her by setting up the Pythian games in her name. In some tellings, these games also might be when a priestess celebrated them to celebrate Apollo's success. But he was like 4 days old. How did he already have a priestess? Are they just assigned to new gods at birth? Did they just prepare? How'd they know she was gonna have a god, though? Not all of them had gods. Whatever. I don't care anymore. Ignoring that. So, now that we talked about his youth, let's talk about his lovers. So first there was Daphne. Daphne was the daughter of the river god Peneus. Yes, I know. Haha. Sounds like penis. Laugh it out. Get out of your system. Grow up. Editor, please show the clip of me laughing at Uranus here. I say Uranus a lot during this video. And I have that humor of a middle schooler. This is a problem. Thank you. Apollo, after he killed Python, was returning home when he crossed paths with Eros. Apollo bragged that his was bigger. So Eros was annoyed by this and shot Apollo. With one of those golden love arrows, first person that Apollo saw, he would be in love with. Unfortunately, this was Daphne, who Eros then shot with a lead arrow so she would never feel love. Apollo pursued her, and she tried to run away, so he gave chase, and she ran to her father. Peneus heard her cries, and he changed her into the laurel tree. This caused Apollo to mourn, and Ovid writes that he declared that she would be his tree. That's why winners in sports and poetry and other stuff get laurel wreaths. There's also Coronis. She was a princess, and Apollo went and sent a white crow to watch over her because he was expecting his child. This caused Apollo to learn that Coronis was actually cheating on him with a mortal man named Ischus. Angered by this, he told his sister to kill Coronis and burned the crow on the funeral fire, causing it to permanently be stained black. According to this, crows originally were right. So as she burned, Apollo rescued his unborn son, who became Alcippus, the god of medicine and a physician. This is said to be the first C-section to some people, which I guess technically, but C-sections were around until the 1500s, so, oh. Then there was Hyacinthus. This one was one of the men that Apollo was gay for. A Spartan prince who loved Apollo. Supposedly could have been killed by one of the wind gods, Zephyrus, who was jealous, causing the discus to tossed by Apollo to strike Hyacinthus and kill him. I thought it was some competition. I'm not sure where I read that, but I don't know. There was another male lover of Apollo as well, named Cyparissus, a descendant of Heracles. Apollo gave him a deer as a companion, but accidentally killed it with a javelin when it was sleeping under the bush. So he was so upset with himself that he asked Apollo to let his tears fall forever, which Apollo did by turning him into the cypress tree. It is said to be a sad tree because its sap forms tear-like droplets. And then there was one of the most famous ones, Cassandra. Cassandra was a daughter of King Priam of Troy. Apollo became extremely smitten with her and tried to win her heart by giving her the gift of prophecy. But Cassandra was like, thanks, but I'm not interested. But I gave you prophecy. Yeah, but I never asked you to do that. I don't know what... I didn't really want it. And it was nice of you, but I'm not interested. Bitch. So Apollo made it to where no one would believe her prophecies, and she only saw bad things happening. Like the fall of Troy. No! Stop talking to the yet! Hold on, I still have time. Wait. There's also a woman named Cerusa who was mentioned in Euripides' play Ion, who had given birth to Ion but left him to die in the wild, so Apollo sent Hermes to take Ion to be raised by a priestess of Delphi. There's also a son of Oceanus named Melia. Wait, I have both front. I've been check. But I don't know if they went willingly or not, but Oceanus sent her brother Canthus to find her. But Canthus couldn't take her back, so he decided to burn Apollo's sanctuary instead. So Apollo shot him. I wrote some really bad puns in this last night. Is this what happens when I just let myself go wild? This is Apollo's fault. Apollo really is just the god of puns too. In case you didn't know. That is definitely one of his modern domains. Also, apparently, Aphrodite's Adonis, who we'll talk about next Terra Teaches, was also supposedly a lover of Apollo, but presenting himself as a woman with Apollo, Apollo's bi, doesn't have to do that. I don't get it. I don't understand. Apollo actually had a lot of lovers who did reciprocate, but most of those stories are boring, like, yes, he was lovers with all 9 of the muses and all these princesses and princes. Like, we get it. He's hot. And most of the ones who could bore him sons. And there was also a woman named Marpessa, who was kidnapped by a man named Idas, but since she was also loved by Apollo, Zeus had her choose between Apollo and Idas. She chose Idas only if Apollo would grow tired of her when she grew up. She hated Apollo so much, she was like, please tell me you'll stop someday. And then we get to my favorite category. Reasons that Apollo should be locked up. So, Apollo once was challenged by a satyr named Marsyas. He had sought out Apollo to challenge him to a musical contest, with the muses as the judges. Marsyas played an alus, a double reed instrument that was sort of like an oboe, but it looked more like that. Anyways, Apollo agreed, and it was decided that whoever won would be allowed to do whatever he wanted with the loser. That reminds me of Platon. He a descendant? Maybe. Explains the bard. Playing his lyre and Marsyas on his alus, the muses were having a hard time picking who was going to be the winner of the two. Apollo knew he had to do something, so he turned his lyre upside down, played it with his hands and mouth at the same time, while singing to create many harmonies. So Marsyas caved, as there was no way he could do anything similar because he had both his hands and mouth to play the instrument already. So Apollo decided to punish him by, content warning, brutal death. He tied him to a tree, peeled his skin off slowly with a knife as Marsyas screamed in agony. This was meant to humiliate him just as much as to hurt him, and Apollo would hang his skin on a nearby pine to warn others not to challenge him. Fucked up! This wasn't even the first time that a satyr challenged him, as previously the god Pan compared his own music to Apollo's, making him more enraged. They chose a king of Lydia to judge, and while Pan did great with the panpipes, Apollo's beauty won King Timoleus over. King Midas of Crete, yes, the one you're thinking of, actually said he thought Pan should have won, so Apollo cursed him to have donkey ears. Zeus also did kill Apollo's favorite son, Alcestis, because he was a physician said to be so good that he could even bring people back from the dead. And so Zeus was like, I can't have that, and killed him. Apollo decided he'd just go and kill the Cyclopes that made Zeus's thunderbolts, calling the weaponsmith over the guy that killed your kid. Apollo doesn't make a lot of sense. There's also a moment when he killed many Achaeans just because Agamemnon had insulted his priest, Chrysis. He didn't even hurt Chrysis. He just called the priest a little bitch, and the whole group of people got slaughtered for it. Apollo's fucking brutal. Apollo was also once approaching a nymph girl named Sinope. He cornered her, and she said she would reciprocate his affection if he would grant her whatever she wished for. So he agreed, and she asked to remain a virgin. Apollo kept his promise and left her alone. She probably immediately after got approached by Artemis, like, you're learning to shoot a bow, welcome to the hunt, girly. Also, Tiresias is back. In one version of his backstory, either when Tiresias was a woman or they were born a woman in this tale, and they promised to sleep with Apollo if he gave her music lessons. Apollo granted, and Tiresias went back on their word, so Apollo turned her into a man. Either again or for the first time. Tiresias, I don't know why he's even here. I don't know why. He doesn't have to be here. Some other fun facts about Apollo. So apparently there's a place called the Hyperborea, which is a land of eternal spring. This place worshipped Apollo above all else and sang and danced in his honor, while hosting the Pythian Games. A forest of trees grew there, becoming the Garden of Apollo, so Apollo spent his winter months over there. Apollo, during this time, would leave his shrine in Delphi under the care of Dionysus, and no prophecies could be made at this time. This was seen as Apollo's annual death. When he returned in spring, a festival called the Theonia was held in Delphi to celebrate. Supposedly, the Hyperbia was also where Leto was born, and she left there to Delos accompanied by a pack of wolves. This is why the wolf is one of Apollo's symbols. Another explanation for wolves being a symbol, however, is simply because he hunted them as a protector of livestock. Also, supposedly on Leto, on one journey, was denied help in a few different towns, and turned 2 different groups into frogs. Pretty funny. Like, you don't associate with turning people into frogs with ancient Greek gods, but really funny. Also, Pythagoras, yes, Triangle Man, his followers said that the study of math and music were both tied to Apollo, and actually followed him, creating in some kind of idea using math and music as mechanics of the cosmos, which created the idea of the music of spheres, which regarded many movements of celestial bodies as being a form of music. I deep dive on this later. It was way too long to read and I did not have the brain power to. Or ATAC will explain it because he's better at understanding this kind of stuff. Right, ATAC?
Okay, alright, so I this is so much harder to explain than it needs to be, but I'm just gonna give you guys the abridged version. Musica Universalis is essentially the music of spheres, or essentially the harmony of the spheres in a philosophical concept. Back in the day, either Pythagoras or someone who used Pythagoras like original ideas or like concepts essentially came up with the idea that everything has to live within a harmonial pattern, essentially, and that the entire universe works like this. This would apply to the same idea that music. So that would mean that if music must be harmonized, that means everything must be harmonized like how music is. This was the birthplace of like the idea of octaves and overtones and blah blah blah. I can't really go into too much detail because this is a whole other philosophy like together. Point is, a lot of people that Pythagoras or his students believed was the fact that all the universe essentially emitted music of themselves, and they all flowed around in these things called tones, an energy that basically can be mathematically equated. Figure out the rhythm nature of planets. There was like stuff like Plato and Aristotle, the heavenly bodies that are above us emit a sound because they need to emit a sound in order for them to be harmonious. And in order to be harmonious, they must emit a sound. And if they do, and move and have motion, that means that it can be equated and actually be mathematically correct. I don't want to get into why that matters or how it matters. Just know that I don't know why Terra told me to explain this in a like video about Apollo, okay? Like, yeah, Apollo's musical, stuff like that, but this is way out of the field, guys. I don't even really need to discuss on this. I don't know, ATAC teaches or whatever, bye.
Oh, yeah, that's the end of the lesson already. Apollo really doesn't have that many stories associated with him as a lot of the other ones. He's just kind of there, which is good. We all love him for it. It's exactly what he needs to do. Also, I love these memes. So this one just says, I'm your girl with time machine, I'm your granddaughter, really? Boy with time machine. Apollo, don't throw the discus! You'll hit Hyacinth and kill him! Oh shit, dude, thanks! Like, I love that. I'm not reading the Greek mythology one in the middle. You guys can have that terrible pun.